Hello, my name is Mary Moore, and I'm a member of the League of Women Voters of Thurston County. The League is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization whose goal is to make sure that you as voters have the information that you need to make good and wise choices. Open to both men and women, the League also advocates for sound public policy that is based on thorough research and consensus. We would like to thank TVTC today very much, as usual, for their wonderful, wonderful support for these candidate forums that we perform twice a year. They do us an immeasurable amount of service, and we appreciate their expertise. Today, we are talking to Sandra Romero and Andrew Barkis, both of whom are candidates for the Thurston County Commissioner #2 position. Good day to you both.
Thank you.
Nice to have you here. We will start with you, Sandra, in your opening remarks. Each one of you have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mary. Glad to be here today. I am Sandra Romero, and I moved here to this community 30 years ago with a 2-month-old daughter and didn't know a soul in town, but found this community incredibly welcoming, tolerant, and compassionate, and moved to the city of Olympia and saw where the downtown core was crumbling and we were losing our historic fabric down there. So got very involved in historic preservation, which then led to my being elected to the Olympia City Council. While I was on the Olympia City Council, I ran for the legislature and I won and spent 12 years in the State House. During that time, I chaired a variety of committees, but the one that I think is most useful to my current position was chairing the House Local Government Committee, where I had a great bird's eye view of what worked and what didn't work around the state. I spent my time after that working on a small contract in country of Pakistan, and then came home and was asked to run for county commission, and I did. During that 4 years, came in during one of the worst recessions, of course, in my lifetime, and we consolidated our government. We have the timesheet. We consolidated our government. We went from a deficit of over $6 million to today we have a $16 million cash balance. One of the few counties in the state that is in a positive financial condition. And I think our commission has just been doing an amazing job and would like to have 4 more years.
Andrew.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you to the League of Women Voters and Mary for having us here today. My name is Andrew Barkis, and I am a resident here of Thurston County. I've been living here for 16 years. Born and raised in Chehalis, just a little south of here. I'm number 8 of 9 children. And you know, I grew up in a large family. And growing up in a large family in a small town, I learned a lot about values, and those values of what the dollar is and hard work and how that's applicable to your life and everything that you do. I've taken that into my career, both in my community involvement and also in my business career. As a 16-year resident here of Thurston County, I actually have lived 13 of those years in unincorporated Thurston County. We'll be one of the first commissioners in a long time that actually lives in the county. My business is Hometown Property Management. I manage about 1,000 single-family residential units here in the county. And as a property manager for 23 years, I've learned quite a bit about budgetary process, managing assets, and taking care of my customers. What I plan to bring to the commission, Mary, is many years of experience in the private sector and balancing that private sector experience in a public sector role. I have 3 priorities I want to bring to the role of commissioner. One is economic recovery. We need to have economic recovery here in Thurston County. We need to look at our business community, and we need to say back to the region that we are open for business, because without that strong business background, without that, we're not going to have the tax base to take care of the second thing I'm looking at, and that is making sure we have adequate funding for all of our essential services. That's our Sheriff's Department, our public and social health and services, and our infrastructure. And third is popular governance. We have to make sure that as a commissioner, we're listening to all of the citizens of Thurston County, not just select groups or agendas, but all of the citizens, and bringing them into the process so their voices are heard. So I'm asking for your vote to become your next commissioner in District 2 here in Thurston County, Andrew Barkas. Thank you.
Okay, let's start with the questions. I will ask the first question of Kathy. Oh, what am I thinking? That was the last. That was the last one. All right, of Sandra.
Yes.
A very good friend of mine. Anyway, I haven't met you yet, dear. Anyway, so Sandra,
yes.
Here is your question. You have 2 minutes to answer this question, and then Andrew, you can respond with 1 minute.
Okay.
What is your opinion about the critical areas ordinance that was recently passed? And what do you think should be the next steps in implementing it and other aspects of the state's Growth Management Act?
Well, the critical area ordinance is part of the Growth Management Act. There are 39 counties in the state, and not all counties have to plan under growth management, but every county has to provide for a critical area ordinance. They're very difficult to pass because they do affect many, many people. But in the long run, it is of advantage to a community to pass a critical area ordinance. It protects our drinking water, it protects our fish and wildlife, it protects our hazardous areas, it lowers our insurance rates when we have flood mitigation. So we in Thurston County, for a variety of reasons, and I don't know what they all were in the past, could not update the critical area ordinance. So it was 18 years old. But the advantage of being pretty much the last county to update in the whole state is that you got to look at what everybody else did. So we're right in line, right in the middle on almost every provision with our cities in our county and the neighboring counties around us. So we're not extreme, but we're not lax either. And so we have worked with all the state regulatory agencies, Department of Fish and Wildlife, and I think we have a great ordinance.
Andrew, how do you respond to that?
Thank you. Well, my opinion on the CAO is I believe that it is overreaching in a lot of areas. There's a couple of things, and it is part of the Growth Management Act to have that, but one of the key tenets of the Growth Management Act is to support economic development. And in so many ways, the critical area ordinance as drafted, as presented, impacts economic development in business in a negative way in the regulatory environment. One of the key areas is, of course, into development and housing. Some of the statistics say that 60 to 70% of our usable land will be tied up through the critical area ordinance. I've heard my opponent talk many times about the neighboring counties and how we were able to be last and such, but I've looked at Pierce County. They passed theirs 4 years ago. They were able to get it done very quickly. I looked at the other counties, and as far as those areas, Mason and Thurston and Lewis counties are much less stringent than Thurston. Thurston's is one of the most stringent there is on the books today.
All right. How about this question then, Andrew?
Okay.
How would you plan to open and operate the ARC, or the Accountability and Restitution Center, happily known as the jail, new jail, given the current financial constraints?
Well, the ARC has been an ongoing discussion point during this campaign. And it's interesting to see right now, that being an election cycle, that the emphasis is being put on to get it open. It's taken many years. As most people know, it's been sitting vacant for 2 years. And over the course of that time, it's costing us taxpayers upwards of $400,000 a year to keep that facility just in a mothballed state. The challenge is, of course, I've heard that it was an economic situation and the funding and everything else, and that does come into play. However, the plan has to be put forth for the long term. The plans that are being developed now by there was a consultant that the Sheriff's Department, actually John Snaza, had instigated, and it develops a very concise plan for staffing and how they can acquire those dollars over the course of time. It's estimated anywhere from $2 million to $3 million a year in additional staffing costs to do that. It is contingent on the staffing model being able to work a different schedule. Of course, there's unions involved and such, and that has not been resolved at this point in time. The biggest thing, Mary, is that I would not, as a commissioner at this point in time, be pushing to open that jail until that plan had been identified and those funding sources for the long term, not just 1 year, but many years down the road. The sheriff hasn't signed off on that particular plan because once he does, he gets the keys to that, and then it becomes his issue and his responsibility. He's also very concerned because he's got other funding issues to be dealing with. More deputies on the road. The fact that in 2013, the Sheriff's Department is now responsible for all on-the-road or over-the-road accident investigations in our county. The demand on personnel is going to be incredible. So we need to look at the budget, we need to look at the staffing models, and we need to look at all things before we rush into opening this facility.
Sandra.
Well, Mary, we are on the road to opening that facility, and we didn't even get an occupancy permit for the ARC until November of last year, so it hasn't really even been sitting idle for a year yet. But we are working closely with the Sheriff's Department and the judges and the prosecuting attorney's office because we're all so closely related, our criminal justice group. And we have a plan, and we are marching forward. We just recently approved the work release facility at the old Owls Welding building on that campus. So we have to have the work release near the new jail because it would be much more economically feasible to do it. So we have a plan, we're moving forward, we're hiring corrections officers, and we're gonna make it.
Okay. The Thurston Regional, this is directed to you, Sandra. The Thurston Regional Planning Council has projected large population growth for Thurston County. How do you intend to manage the population growth issue?
Managing growth is probably one of the most important functions of the county and local jurisdictions. And the key to managing growth has to do with regional relationships. And we know how expensive sprawl development is. Expensive for police protection, expensive for road maintenance, a whole variety of things. So Thurston Regional has taken the tact over the years that growth, major growth businesses should occur within the urban areas where the infrastructure already exists. And to only have out in the county natural resource businesses like forestry, agriculture, mining, and some large manufacturers along the I-5 corridor. So we have been staying with our plans, all the jurisdictions plan together. We're coordinated. We're really at the very forefront in the state of regional cooperation through planning. So it's working really well now. We're starting to get the figures to turn around. We were finding just a few years ago that most of the new growth was out in unincorporated Thurston County where there wasn't the infrastructure. And now that part is slowed and we see it going more within the urban growth areas.
Andrew, would you like to respond?
I would. I'd also like to just say that, there's a really good video on YouTube on October 2010 on Como regarding the jail. It was a great report showing it was ready for occupancy. So it's interesting that we're now just using the November timeframe as when it was completed. You know, the challenge is to be able to support the growth. And there were a lot of, I went to the Sustainable Thurston County Planning. We used the Legos and we built that out. And the model that I was working with my group, we were looking at all of the different areas that could support that. And of course you want to utilize the areas that have infrastructure to support that growth that's going to be coming in the area. But I hate to hear that we want to control the growth or dictate to where it's going to go. You know, when you have South County and other areas that have land and the resources to be able to put that to, and you have a business that wants to locate there, I don't like the fact that we want to dictate that they need to be in a certain area because this is where we believe they should be. It's a balancing act, and we know that growth is going to come, but we need to work together with the other municipalities to ensure that that growth will happen.
Okie dokie. Andrew, are you in favor of establishing terminals for the export of coal in the state of Washington, perhaps even in Olympia? And if so, why? And if not, why not?
You bet. Yes, I am in favor of that. Coal is a natural resource that we are blessed in this country to have abundance of. And unfortunately, over the course of time, the coal industry as a fuel to burn in a steam generating plant to create energy and power that we need in this country has been frowned upon. And there has been systematic dissolving or dismantling of that infrastructure, even with the advanced technology now of clean burning coal technology. Some reports say that we have 100+ years or more of this fossil fuel in our country. So unfortunately now that has been countrywide. We've seen it here in our own backyard with the closing of the proposed closing of the Centralia steam plant, that those producers of coal have to do something with their coal. And there are many countries throughout this world, China being one of them, that would love to buy that. So what's going to be the process? It's kind of one of those situations that, one area we want to have that area that we can say that we don't want to have these coal-fired power plants, but in the other area now we've got to do something with this coal and they're going to start exporting. So now we don't want to see the trains coming through our area with the coal. There is technology within the context of transporting that cleanly and safely from one point to the other to get those there. Establishing those terminals, even here in Olympia, I don't think it would happen because of our port and the size and shallowness of the basin. But being able to get that coal to export creates jobs, and it creates the ability to get that resource out and dollars back into our economy. Washington State is one of the most dependent on export of any state in the Union. So if we start to look at coal as a transportation type of situation, then what's next? Gas, oil, and all the other things that are going up and down the rails right now that have to go to market, whether within our own country or for export. So again, we got to find that balance on there.
Sandra, what do you think?
Well, I'm completely the opposite on that one. I think it's coal use for generating electricity is probably one of the dirtiest fuels you can use. And as far as coal trains, there are two reasons that I would be very opposed to it. One is the length of the trains. I mean, that will disrupt commerce in communities all over the route for the coal train. But most importantly is that coal can only be transported in open containers. It cannot be closed off because of the danger of fire. So those particulates, those PM10s, those little tiny things get in your lungs, and we know of increase in asthma and lung cancer. And I'm very concerned about the health of the community. So, yeah.
Okie dokie. I'm not supposed to say that. So Sandra, the Puget Sound Partnership has adopted an action agenda or state plan for the restoration and protection of Puget Sound, complete with site indicators and targets for achieving a healthy sound by 2020 as required by law. How could the county be involved in helping to achieve those targets?
Thank you. the reason that we have a Puget Sound partnership, because we have a very beautiful Puget Sound that is slowly disintegrating. Dissolved oxygen levels are killing fish. The heated banks of rivers are making it impossible for some of the fish to spawn. We have a whole lot of real problems that pertain to the health of Puget Sound. Thurston County is at the very bottom of the sound. That's where all of the water kind of sits and doesn't circulate very well where we are. So we do play a huge role. But also, we have formed an alliance, Thurston County has. I'm the co-chair along with Linda Ring Erickson, and it is a consortium made up of Kitsap County, Mason County, Pierce County, Kitsap, Pierce, Thurston, Nisqually tribe, and the Squaxin tribe. And we are all working to be able to shine a big spotlight on our region for resources to help with cleaning up the sound. And that doesn't just mean in the sound, it means the tributaries going into the sound, because fish need cool water to spawn and grow. They need gravel in the stream bed, and the runoff from stormwater is very harmful to very small fish, because in a big rain event, that water rushes into the stream and just blasts out all the little eggs. So we are working diligently with partners to be able to get us a very clean Puget Sound again.
Thank you. Andrew, would you like to respond?
You bet. You know, we are so blessed to be in this area. It is absolutely gorgeous. And I've hiked and camped through my scouting experiences and all over this area, and had the privilege of fishing and boating all over Puget Sound. And I'm glad to see the work that has been done over the many years, not just here recently in the last couple of years, but for years and years, the resources, the funding, and the people who have been involved to protect and preserve Puget Sound. As a county, we'll continue that work. We'll continue to do the things that we need to do to make sure that that beautiful resource is protected. But we have to look at it again with reasonableness, and we have to make sure that it is balanced with the growth and with the different things that need to happen. Lacey is a great example. You know, we didn't just start doing stormwater retention and all the different things to keep the water from going into the rivers and streams, ultimately into Puget Sound. You know, Lacey has taken steps for years to do that, and they've had great success on Henderson Inlet with the reopening of those shellfish beds because of the work they did to mitigate that stormwater runoff.
You both have obviously thought about this a good deal. Well, all right, Andrew. The last question is for you to start with, and then Sandra to respond to. Local, state, and national parks are all facing tough financial times, as you know, and the pressure to pay their own way. What is your vision of the future of our county's park system? Should it be expanded to include more parks as we prepare for future population increases and increased park use? How should our parks be paid for?
Well, again, it goes back to the benefit of living in this area. Mm-hmm. You know, within 30 minutes of here, you can be in some of the most amazing areas to hike and camp. And being involved in Boy Scouts, you know, I've taken my boys all over this region, this county, and also this state. Having a really strong parks department and a parks program is good. But again, we have to look at the priorities, and we have had challenging times within our budget, but it comes down to priorities. So when you're looking at the budget and you're looking at the different areas that we can fund, we need to find the resources to be able to put into the parks that we have that are established, and also for future parks. There has been mention of impact fees and the usage of impact fees directly for supporting the parks program. I am not sure if that's exactly where all those dollars will go to, and I'm not in support of creating impact fees at this point in time, especially during these economic times that we're trying to recover from. But we do have parks within our county right now, such as the Deschutes Falls Parks, the property that we own as a county, that have not been utilized for years and years and years. So it's time to decide, are we going to utilize that? Should we look at maybe putting that into maybe working with the Capital Land Trust or one of those organizations to preserve that beautiful area, or are we going to have the resources? How are we going to pay for that? Well, we may look at adopting something that the state has done with their Discovery Pass program. Not as popular, but those that use the park appreciate that those dollars are going directly into the park service. The other part is having some kind of a fee-based program for people to be able to use that. Another area that I think might be well to look at is something similar to what we did with the Lacey Regional Park, the athletic park in Lacey off of Stillicum Road in Marvin, is being able to work with that spirit of cooperation with some of the other municipalities that some of these parks are located within to be able to both use and utilize fundings from the other resources or the other regional areas to be able to open and facilitate the maintenance of those. Thank you.
Sandra, what do you think?
Well, you know, we don't have to have parks. The state doesn't make us have parks. We want to have parks. They are very popular. And so it's always a challenge to be able to find the resources to keep our parks open. But the county has been really aggressive on keeping our park system intact and to add new parks. We are working very closely with the Nisqually tribe right now on the Deschutes Falls Park. It is a very delicate ecosystem, and could be dangerous, so it has to be done in a wonderful way. We are also looking at weaning our utilities off of the real estate excise tax, so we will have more money to put into our parks. We opened the first off-leash dog park in the county without using any taxpayers' dollars. So we have kept our Chehalis Trail going by putting that in the transportation budget because it is a transportation system.
Interesting. Well, the two of you have done very well with our 6 questions. We have many more we could ask, but we're out of time. What we do have time for is for 1 minute for each of you to give your kind of last remarks. And Sandra, let's start with ladies first.
Okay, that's just fine, Mary. I just wanted to stress that I have been in local government and state government and school board and have that background that I have brought to the county commission. I think that being able to work with other jurisdictions, have regional support, is worth its weight in gold. Having good relationships is the way to move our government forward. I have enjoyed my 4 years on the county commission, and I really look forward to 4 more years.
Andrew?
Thank you. Well, first of all, I want to thank you, Mary, for a nice job, and the League of Women Voters for this opportunity. The choice is very clear between my opponent and I for your next county commissioner. I bring experience from the private sector. I bring years of involvement in my community, in leadership roles throughout all the organizations, a strong business background. And I want to translate that into from the private sector into the public sector. I do believe that our county is in a crisis. We face many challenges in front of us, and it's going to take true leadership to be able to pull our county into the next several years and many years down the road. Leadership that I possess, leadership that I will bring into the role as county commissioner. I believe it's a call to service, and that call has come out, and I'm ready to answer that call. My name is Andrew Barkas. I'm asking for your vote, and you can find out more information about these issues and about myself and my campaign at andrewbarkas.org. Thank you, and thank you.
What I would like to say on behalf of the League of Women Voters to our listeners is that we have brought you fine candidates, who know about the issues, and now it is up to you to make a choice. Make that choice wisely, but make it, as in vote. Make sure you've cast your vote. It is the most precious thing that you have as a citizen of this country. Thank you.